YouTube! What is going on, guys? It's your friend eBates back again with another video. I hope you guys are all having an amazing day so far. In today's video, guys, we're actually giving the best settings for graphics, for movement, for my sensitivity and my ADS. All of the above we're going to cover in this video. Before we jump into all of the settings, guys, we got a long video ahead of us. I want to quickly shout out my Noti gang. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel with your post noties on, and also comment Noti gang down below to be featured. We shout out 2 people every single video. Let's get straight to it. So starting off, guys, I am a controller player. I use a PS5 controller. This, in my opinion, is just one of the most dominant inputs on the game. And if you guys do want to be good at Warzone at the best form, in my opinion, I know there's some great keyboard and mouse players out there, but I think controller is definitely a dominant input on this game. So starting off with the graphics, starting off with your display mode, I do highly recommend full screen. I know I've seen a lot of people use full screen borderless, but what that really does is just kind of delays the input on your controller, and also it just kind of reduces your frames a lot because full screen, it focuses on the games and it renders everything in a full screen format, while full screen borderless can kind of render stuff that's in the background, such as a Google tab, all that, etc. If you guys are running full screen borderless, it's most likely because you are a streamer and you alt tab a lot. So if you guys aren't alt tabbing a lot, which is basically closing your game, make sure you guys are running full screen. Now, I personally run a 1440p monitor, which is why you see 2560 by 1440. But if you guys are on a 1080 monitor, you're going to see 1920 by 1080. This isn't going to change much. It's basically what your game resolution is going to be at. Now, getting into the frame rate limit, in my opinion, from my experience, it is best to do this at custom and also cap your frames at what your monitor refresh rate has. So as mine is a 240 hertz, so I keep it at 239, which is also, you know, same as 240, 239. I think I just kind of randomly put it, but make sure you guys are capping that at what your frame rate is on your monitor. For my brightness, I do have it at 50. If you guys have a darker monitor or you play in a brighter setting, make sure you guys are adjusting that to your comfortability. But in my opinion, I've had great success with 50. I have NVIDIA highlights disabled and NVIDIA reflex low latency enabled. Make sure you guys and try it out. I know in a lot of different games, enabled plus boost is preferred on the reflex low latency, but I've had a lot of success using enabled, so go ahead and try those out. I am running a 115 FOV. I know a lot of the PC players run 120 because they max it out since they're playing on PC. But guys, this is all just comfortability and preference. I prefer a lower FOV just so I can shoot a little bit straighter and I can see a lot more, but go ahead and mess with that. Getting into your camera movement, this is super important. Make sure you guys have it at least 50%. This is what's going to allow you to basically see a lot more clear because the camera is not shaking as much. Now, getting into some of the details and textures, a lot of these things, guys, you're going to see on really low because this is what's going to improve our frames as much as possible. So go ahead and try these out. Streaming quality, I have it on low. Texture resolution, I have it on low. Texture filter anti-stropic, I have it on high. This is what's going to load the textures on the ground so you can see a lot more clearly, and it doesn't take up a lot of your GPU or CPU. Particle quality, I have as high as well so you can see a lot clearer. Bullets and sprays, I have disabled. There's no reason you need to see whether a gun was shot in a certain area. Tessellation, this is disabled. Dismemberment and gore effects, this is like your blood and all that stuff, disabled. It's basically just unnecessary graphics that you don't need unless you like that stuff. On-demand texture streaming, I also have it disabled. Now, getting into some of the post-processing effects, as you guys can see, I have filmic strength at 1, filmic grain at 0. My NVIDIA DLSS is disabled. Anti-aliasing, I've seen a lot of people mess with this. I prefer SMAA 1X. You guys can go ahead and try this out. I did notice that my frames were at the highest when it was on this setting, so go ahead and try that out. Depth of field, world motion blur, and weapon motion blur, you should absolutely have disabled. There's no reason to have this enabled. Basically, if you're moving, you're just going to see a lot of blurriness, and that is just not good, especially if you're trying to be a competitive player. Make sure you guys have these settings disabled. Now, getting into some of the shadows and lighting, you're going to want to keep your shadow map resolution on low, your cache spot shadows enabled, cache sun shadows enabled. Particle lighting, you're going to want on low. DirectX ray tracing, absolutely keep this disabled. Ambient occlusion and SSR also disabled. Now, this is more so stuff that's going to help you become a better player under the interface, so go ahead and follow these. For coloring, guys, I use colorblind mode and I throw it on Deuteranopia. This, in my opinion, is just what allows you to see Caldera and Rebirth and Fortune's Keep a lot more clear. The colors are a lot more vibrant. You can mess with these a little bit. There's a bunch of different options, but I prefer Deuteranopia. It just looks the cleanest on this map. You're going to want to have your colorblind target at both. Now, getting into some of the HUD settings, which are basically your mini map, your reload, all the stuff that tells you how much ammo you have, all the stuff on the right side of the screen, all around the border. You're going to want to have your mini map shape at square. This is super important. If you notice, a lot of the console players have theirs on circle. It's basically what is standard default to the game, but on square, you can actually see a lot more. And as you guys can see in this painting or this picture on the right, you guys can see all these corners up here but on the mini map, the circular one, you cannot. So make sure you guys are having the square mini map on. Mini map rotation, this is a very important one. Now, it's all preference at the end of the day, but I prefer that my mini map rotates with my body. So whichever way that I am facing, that is where my mini map is going towards. So it's not a northwest, east, south. It's basically gonna do a full circle with you so that your mini map is always following your character. Now, again, this is kind of preference. I prefer a compass because sometimes when you're trying to make a communication to your teammate, you say, oh, they're right there, and they're like, where? You could either say north, south, west, east, you know, all these, and they also pop up with degrees. So you guys can go ahead and mess with this a little bit. If you don't use this compass up top, and you can go ahead and turn it off. It doesn't really matter too much. Now, getting into some of the system settings, I prefer my FPS counter be enabled. That way, as a PC player, I can see how many frames I'm getting, because if you guys are dipping into lower frames, that's telling you that you have something wrong with your PC. Either it's getting too hot or something is acting up in the system. So I prefer to have this on, as well as my server latency, guys. This is basically what your ping is, how good you are connecting to the server. So if you guys are lagging, it should spike up and down, and above 100. If you're on an EU server, I'm from North America, so if I'm connected to EU, it should be around 130, 120. So it's just good to know kind of what your general sense is of how good your connection is to the specific server you're connected to. Also, if you guys don't know what ping is, basically it is a millisecond response time to how an action is reacted to a certain specific movement. So let's say I shoot my gun and my ping is at 70 milliseconds later, the game will render whether it is going to hit the bullet or not. Packet loss is another one that I would really keep on. This is another thing to do with internet and your network. If you guys are having packet loss issues, it should pop up a percentage. Anything over 0% is an issue with an internet or a server connection. So make sure you guys have that on, because that's what's going to tell you whether you're lagging or not. I personally don't have my GPU temperatures or my CPU temperatures on my game, but if you guys do know that your computer runs a little hot and you guys have to keep an eye on it, you can go ahead and turn this on. As you can see, it pops up here, and my GPU is at 54 degrees. I believe that anything under 80 is what you want to keep your GPU at, but it is all base to base, case to case. So make sure you guys check out whatever PC you're running, whatever devices, whatever graphics card you have. Make sure you guys are checking out what temperatures are satisfied for it. Lastly, under the interface, this is an important one. You're going to want to skip the introduction movie whenever you open the game. This is just, you do not want this because it's just basically wasting your time. Make sure you guys enable this so it skips the movie every single time. Getting into some of my audio settings. Now, quick shout out to Foves FPS. He actually helped me with my audio settings, and I used to be running boost high, which is terrible for Warzone, is what I found out. I am now running home theater. You can hear footsteps, audio, much cleaner, much more consistent, especially during like cluster strikes or precision airstrikes. So make sure you guys try these out. I have had the most success with home theater. I was running boost high for the past 2 years, and I just switched to home theater, and I absolutely love it. It is going to be a little bit of an adjustment if you guys do switch, but make sure you guys check these out. I'm running my master volume at 50, my dialogue volume at 40, and I do not like music, so I am running it at 0. My effects and cinematics is going to be at 100. I don't think cinematics has anything to do with Warzone, so don't worry about that too much. Now, make sure you guys have mono audio disabled. Do not run mono audio. That is basically what combines your left and right and makes it into one, so you can't even hear directional audio. Make sure you guys have this at disabled. Now, getting into some of my controller settings, I am a tactical player, which basically means that I slide with my right thumbstick when I click it in. I know a lot of people run the default, which is B or circle if you're on PS4 controller, but go ahead and, this is all personal preference. This is what works for me, and because I am a ex-S&D player, I used to slide cancel or drop shot and search and destroy, so I run tactical. It's just what's comfortable for me. Now, these dead zones are super important. I run my right stick at 0.03. I actually got this from Biffle, and this is what he uses on his right stick. Right stick is super important because you are aiming. That's everything that you're going to be doing with your aiming, so make sure you guys go ahead and run a dead zone that is comfortable to you. A lot of ways that you can test dead zone is based on how much stick drift you have. So if you have a high amount of stick drift, which is basically when your controller moves without touching your stick, make sure you increase the dead zone because it's going to decrease the sensitivity of it. Now, getting into my horizontal and vertical sensitivity, I personally run a 6-7. If you guys are new to the game or you're just trying to get better, you're trying to shoot a little bit straighter, I definitely prefer a lower sensitivity, as this is going to help you what's going to be able to track people in the air, people on the ground. You're going to be just methodically being able to aim a lot more cleaner. I know a lot of the pros run a higher sensitivity because they're, moving a lot quicker. But if you guys are new to the game and you're not a professional player, make sure you guys are running a lower sensitivity. I know Biffle as well, who is honestly one of the best players in Warzone of all time. He runs a 6-6 sensitivity. So if that puts in perspective, higher sensitivity does not mean better players. So make sure you guys are running a lower sensitivity so you have better aim and you're much more methodical about how you move. Now, for my aim response curve type, I am running dynamic. This is what I've been using the entirety of Warzone, and I definitely prefer it. So go ahead and try these out. I've tried the other two and I didn't like them at all. So go ahead and use dynamic. Absolutely do not be using controller vibration, guys. If you guys do want to shoot a little bit straighter, you don't want to get distracted while you're getting engagements, turn off controller vibration. I don't know why anyone would ever run this. Basically, just makes your controller rumble while you're trying to shoot, and I don't honestly see a point in that. So make sure you guys have this disabled. Now, for my aim assist, I do have standard in my scale, aim assist with FOV I have disabled. So this is basically the more your FOV goes, it'll kind of change your aim assist based on the targets. I just keep scale aim assist with FOV disabled. That way nothing changes no matter what your FOV is. Go ahead and mess with those. I know people play with it either enabled or disabled, but I prefer disabled. Now for a lot of these settings, you probably already have set and it's kind of what you're used to, but I'm going to dig into what is, in my opinion, the best option for specific things. So for your aim sight down behavior, you're going to want to have it on hold. This is when you hold L2 to aim in. It's not a toggle, so if you tapped it, you could let go and it'd still aim in. Make sure you guys have hold on. I think in my opinion, that is pretty standard on most games. So go ahead and try that. Equipment behavior, I have this on hold. So if I need to, you know, throw a frag grenade, I'm holding it down the entire way and then I'm letting go when I want to throw it instead of touching and then touching again when you want to throw it. I prefer hold. Again, this is all preference. Now for your use and reload behavior, contextual tap is going to be the best option for you. Basically, this is going to allow you to open chests just tapping square instead of holding every single time when you open a door, open a chest, reload, all that stuff. Contextual tap, what it basically does is that it prioritizes the tap. But let's say you're near a door and you need to reload your gun. If you tap it, it will open the door before you reload your gun. Let's say you're by the door and you want to reload your gun, then you can hold. It's basically situational and it allows you to tap through most things as quickly as possible, picking up guns, ammo, chests, anything else. Basically, it's just a much cleaner way and a much smoother way to get through certain doors and chests. Now, getting into some of the movement, make sure you guys, your slide behavior is on tap. I was running hold for the longest time, which basically means that whenever you want to slide, you have to hold your thumbstick or whatever your button is to slide down and then pop it up again to slide cancel. Make sure this is on tap. That way it is instantly reacting to every single movement you are doing on your controller. The more hold positions that you guys have, it's basically going to slow you down as a player and make your movement not as crisp. Also, I am running auto tac sprint. I know a lot of you guys use default, which is what I used for the longest time, but I switched about 6 months ago. Auto tac sprint is great, and honestly, it's going to save your controller's life, I promise. Basically, what auto tac sprint is every time you put your stick forward, your left stick forward, it's going to automatically sprint instead of having to click in the stick every single time to sprint. This is how, you know, people like Joe, Woe, Biffle, all of them have insane movement because they're instantly reacting to their controller's response. Now, lastly, to talk about movement, parachute auto deploy. Basically, if you're getting close to the ground, your parachute normally automatically deploys. That's kind of just, this is something that you absolutely do not, because off the drop when you're jumping out of the plane, you guys do want to get to the ground as quick as possible. So if your parachute's pulling automatically and you're not close to the ground, it's basically going to delay you, which is why you're probably losing your one-on-ones early on, because you're not getting a gun before anyone else off the drop. So make sure you guys have this disabled. It is never going to pull the chute for you automatically. So make sure you guys know that. You always have to press the button to pull your chute. That is all of my settings for Call of Duty Warzone in Season 4. If you guys do have any questions, make sure you guys leave them down below, as I will be responding to every single comment down below. And also, if you guys are new here, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel with your post notifications on. It would really help me out a lot. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.